Hi, and welcome to my channel. This is Random Sim Stuff. My name is Kasha, and this is like the first actual video that I'm recording. I did post a few short machinimas on my channel just of my family, and we're going to go over those on my Tumblr page just to kind of give an update before we begin. So I'm just going to go over the rules real quick. I am playing Morbid's Decades channel. And these are kind of the rules. I will go ahead and link the rules in the description, and I'll link everything that I show you in the description. So the rules say that you could start with one heir or create like their family, which is what I did with the Northroads, which I will go ahead and show you. I'm not gonna go over these rules because like overly too much. It's kind of gonna be self-explanatory when I get started. And I am kind of adjusting a lot of it to my gameplay because this is gonna be really story heavy, which is kind of my whole plan. So I'm gonna go over the spreadsheet first. So this is the Northroads spreadsheet. We are currently in 1303. And I will just go over the characters real quick here. We've got Leofred, who married Ismay, and they had 3 children, Reginald, Matildus, and Berta. Which it might be actually easier to go and show you this, the tree real quick. And I will go ahead and go through my Tumblr page while I'm on here and kind of explain some of the story things that have happened in the first 3 years. So Leofred and Ismay married. They were married in, I'm not actually sure. They married in 1279. And so here they are on the Sims tree, which I will link in the description as well. I've got a few gallery pictures on here to look at, and he is family orientated, clumsy, and he loves the outdoors. And they reside in Windenburg, which some of the worlds are renamed in my actual game, which I'll have to go in and fix. It's just a lot of work. And he married Ismay. She is generous, creative, and a goofball. And those are kind of our founder's parents. They both rolled to survive. So if we go to the timeline here, Matildus is a young adult, and her husband Finian, and Leofred and Ismay will age into elders shortly. They're fairly old. I am using a different rolling system. I will go ahead and link the rules that I'm kind of using as well. I don't have them in my Google Docs folder right now that I'm using this from, and I can't remember off the top of my head who it's from, the edited version. But anyway, Leofred and Ismay had 3 children together. They had Reginald Northwood, Matildus Northwood, and Berta Northwood. And there's been some drama that's happened. In the first 3 years, which I'm just gonna go, it's gonna be so much easier if I just go from my Tumblr page and just explain them here. So we've got Leofred and Ismay Northwood. Reginald is their oldest son. He is self-assured. He loves the outdoors, and he is, gosh, why can I never remember his third trait? He is also hot-headed. Yes, so he's a bit of a hothead too. And then there is Matildus Northwood. She is a perfectionist who is also, I can't remember any of my Sims traits. She's a perfectionist who's also creative, and she's high maintenance. So that's kind of Matilda's here. This is her teenage look that I have here. And then Berta, who is the youngest, she is just turned 16 in 1303. So she is the youngest. She's kind of she's the baby girl of the family. So Reginald has been hunting since he was a child. He's great with a bow. And I wrote like a whole introduction here. I don't think I'm gonna read this whole thing. You are more than welcome to check out my Tumblr page and read through kind of his biography. He is the heir, so we'll be following him. He's got some drama that has happened with him down the road. When I started this, he had just turned 20. So he's kind of a late married person. He wishes to have a successful lineage, and he really wants to kind of make his family go further than his father has made it. They're not serfs. They are peasants. His father's a landowner, and so they're not horribly poor or anything. But you know, as I wrote here somewhere, they Leofred and Ismay have been working this land for, you know, since they were teenagers, and it's not perfect, but they're happy. They grew up pretty happy. But again, the land yielded little bounty, as I wrote here. So Ismay is definitely a homemaker, and Leofred is like the land worker. They're very much, they love their kids. They've got a great family and everything. So Matilda's, her whole thing is she dreamt of like grand ball gowns and declarations of undying love, and her imagination was a vibrant tapestry woven from the whispered stories of traveling bards. She really dreamed of like finding her true love and everything. And Reginald would tease her, and there is just a lot of, when they were a lot younger than they are now, which I suppose is only like 3 years earlier, so they're not terribly like much older, but a lot happened in those 3 years when I first started the challenge and everything. And this is very story based. Anyway, this is the map. This will probably be easier to explain to you in a new tab here. So, they reside in Oakhaven. The Northwoods do. There's a little village in Oakhaven, Windenburg, and that is where Reginald and Leofred and Ismay and Berta, they all live here. Brift is kind of like the city. It's like a day's travel from Oakhaven. It's on the other side of Windenburg, and there are a few things that happen in Brift. But those are kind of the two big towns in Windenburg right now that are pertinent to the story. Granite Falls and Granite Falls City is where Matildus and Finian, which I suppose we'll get into in a little bit. Matildus and Finian moved to Granite Falls City after they got married because there really wasn't anything for them in Windenburg. Finian didn't have a house. He was really poor and everything when they got together. So Berta is an art lover. She is also jealous. She's really jealous of her sister and how pretty she is, and how her sister is so perfect, and she is just everything that Berta looks up to. And Berta feels like her sketches and her love for art is kind of trivial and ordinary and kind of pointless for the life that they live in. And it does come back to haunt her a lot in like her younger years and stuff. And they kind of have an interesting dynamic, Matildas and Berta, which everybody calls Matildas Tilly. That's kind of her nickname. So I will probably refer to her as Tilly. And Reg is Reg, because they have nicknames. I really like the story vibe for them, how it's, you know, they're siblings. They grew up together. They're going to have nicknames. They're going to have different names for them and everything. But Berta is a very jealous sim. She's, you know, she wishes that she wasn't a peasant and that she could have the freedom to enjoy her art and everything and not have to worry about food or the crops dying or anything. And Reginald, he was born for that life. So that's kind of the difference between the siblings there. So Matildas met Finian in 1301. She met him in the woods. He was just a wood carver. His parents died when he was really young. He doesn't really have a place that he sleeps. He kind of makes a place in the woods, and he sleeps. He's homeless. He's poorer than Tilly's family. He's not a serf because he hasn't sold himself to the Lord or anything. He's just he just has nothing. He carves wood carvings enough to get by through the winter, and that's kind of it. But she met him in the woods, and they kind of got along and everything, and he's also a perfectionist, so they're both, you know, twin souls. That's what I was going for. They're both twin souls, and I really love their whole growth and everything. They met in the woods, and they're just happier together. I mean, Tilly and Finian, they just got on, and she decided that she didn't need all these big things. She didn't need a knight in shining armor or anything, because she met Finian, and that's all she needed. And that was kind of where the first machinima came from. He gifted her a wooden bird, and you can watch the video on my channel of, like, her family did not approve of her falling in love with a wood carver who had nothing. How was he going to provide for her and everything? And that's kind of how that went. But she fell utterly in love with him. So they just got on. And this is kind of some of the things that happened in 1301, just regular gameplay pictures and everything. And then Finian and Tilly, Finian finally proposed. And they were married in 1302. We just had a small earthquake. Anyway, Finian and Matildas were married in late spring of 1302. They had a small ceremony, and their passage to Granite Falls, which was kind of where they decided they were going to start their life and everything, was paid for by her dowry. They had nothing when they got to Granite Falls, which I'll kind of go over as we get to that part in the story. I love these two. They are, like, my everything. I love them more than the main heir and everything. But we'll move on to page 2 here. This was their wedding portrait. That was, it wasn't really a painting. It was embroidered by Berta. And it's in game and everything. I just need to hang it on the wall. They had a really lovely wedding. Berta kind of does most of the art things in the family, which I like having an artist, because peasants really couldn't afford, like, huge, extravagant tapestries or anything. But Berta really does love her sister, and so she painstakingly embroidered this for her to take with her. And they left in the late summer of 1302. Maybe not late summer, maybe late spring. They left to go to Granite Falls City. And this is kind of them leaving and worrying about how they don't know if they'll be able to visit home because they'll have nothing when they arrive. And her whole family came and wished her goodbye, and there they went. All right, now we get into Reginald's kind of dramatic love story here. So Reg has always been a carefree person. He does wish to have a wife and a family and everything, and he wants to have a successful lineage, and he wants to have kids that carry on his name and everything. But he's really carefree. He's never fallen in love. He's not like a real believer in the whole thing. He was really upset that his sister, who he was really close to, Tilly, went across the sea to go live in this strange new place that he doesn't really understand why she would leave their family for love. He doesn't, because he's never experienced it. Anyway, so he's kind of drinking in the tavern a few months after they left and everything. This is like, I don't know, early summer. So it's getting cooler outside and everything. And then we get introduced to Emma. So this is Emma. She is, she's been in love with Reginald since she was just a young child. She's about a year older than Berta is, and she's utterly smitten with Reginald. She has been since they were young kids, and she kind of follows him to the tavern and stuff to just check up on him because he's going through a rough time because his sister left him. His sister was his best friend. Tilly and him, they went rounds with each other, but they really did love each other. And, you know, he's not going to be able to see her anymore. They don't know how to read and write, so he can't write her a letter. He has no idea how she's doing over there, and they didn't have enough money to like give her a start or anything, so he's kind of drinking away his sorrows here. And Emma she's young, she's naive, you know, and Reginald is drunk. So they kind of have this whole altercation in the tavern, and, you know, Reginald really just doesn't, he knows that Emma loves him. He knows that Emma, like, has a crush on him, but he just thinks it's just a crush. You know, it's not, he sees her as, like, one of Berta's friends. That's all she kind of is. And Emma kind of gets the wrong idea here with him, because he kind of flirts with her while they're in the tavern and stuff. But he kind of, like he says here, he thinks of her as a cute little puppy. You know, she's always there, always on his heels, and she's a serf. She doesn't have any siblings. She's like the sole heir to nothing because they're serfs. They don't have anything. But Reginald kind of flirts with her a bit here, and he's pretty drunk, and he wants to have a good time. That's all he kind of is looking for here. He's probably blackout drunk at this point and doesn't remember anything that he's doing. But she is not drunk. She thinks that he thinks the same way about her as she does him. And so one thing leads to another, and they kind of get together and have a fun little night. And Emma knows that this is wrong. This is not what he wants, but she does want this. She wants to be with Reginald. And you can kind of see some of the extra content that's on my Tumblr page. Anyway, so I go over the next day and everything, and he does not really remember what's all happening here. And Ismay comes in and brings him some soup, and she's like, Emma brought you home, you were quite the handful last night and everything. And he's a little mortified by that. He's like, Emma, she brought me all the way back here. And Ismay knows that she's been taken with him since they were both really young, and she cares for him a lot. She does not know what happened. I think that Ismay is a bit of a gullible person. She kind of thinks for the best and does not think about the worst possible scenario or anything. That's just a little bit on Ismay there. Reg here is after that night and everything, he's like piecing together fragments and has kind of figured out that this is not a good thing that's happened. He's not entirely sure what's happened. I mean, he knows that something happened with Emma, but he's not entirely sure if, like, a big thing happened, or if they were just flirting and all this stuff. But he doesn't really associate with Emma or anything. She lives down the road, she lives on a farm, and there's, like, not a lot of interaction between the two. And now we get into a few of the side characters from Tilly and Finian. So they are living in Granite Falls City right now. And this is one of the big families that are going to be prominent with their story. This is Willie Elmas. He just goes by Will, and his lovely wife, Ediva. And they have a cute little son named Henry. And so Will, I don't know why I named him Willie Elmas. That's like a really hard name to pronounce. He just goes by Will. He's a really sweet man who just wants the best for his family. He adores his son. He truly cares for his wife, Ediva. But he does have a terrible secret that would ruin his reputation and that of his family if anyone found out. So this is kind of, they have their own dark secrets and everything, but we don't know what that is quite yet. And he runs the local clothing shop in Granite Falls with his wife, Ediva, who is a very talented clothes maker. And Ediva is just a bubble. She's a huge sweetheart who she knows how to keep up appearances when things go awry. She makes all the dresses for the couple's clothing shop. Her son is her pride and joy, and she hopes to have more children one day. I kind of took inspiration from Glenda from Wicked when I made her. She is just, she loves the color pink. She makes all her own clothes. She's like this happy, she's this happy person, and I love Ediva so much. And then there's Henry, who is a very fussy toddler, but he gets along with Tilly when she comes to kind of meet them, and we'll see what happens there. So they arrive in, I'm gonna say, early summer, around the same time that the tavern's happening, the tavern altercation with Reg is happening, is when they arrive in Granite Falls City, and they're kind of worried and everything. It's a new town, they've never been here, they just arrived by boat and everything. And Finn is kind of like, let's go see what Granite Falls has to offer. And this is kind of the main city in Granite Falls City, which is governed by the Lord Proudfoot. And Tilly kind of just sees the clothing shop, and she heads right in. She wants to go look at the dresses and everything. They know they need to find some work, so maybe they'll ask around the local townspeople. And Edova greets them. She is, she's a bit much at first, and Tilly is kind of taken aback. So, you know, she's pretty shy, and they're looking for work, and, she's a little bit perturbed and everything. And Finian bows to Will, and he's like, we were hoping that you guys might be able to help us out with some work, maybe a place to put up our tent for the night. We don't really have anything. He's a wood carver, so, you know, if there's anything that can kind of help out with that. And Will he's pretty shy with new people and everything, so he's like, a wood carver, there's not much call for that here. Granite Falls is more about utility, not wood carving. I mean, I don't know what you're gonna do there. And Edova is waving him off, and she says, nonsense, beauty's always needed. Perhaps I can help. I'm in dire need of someone to help out the shop with the cooking and the cleaning, and to look after little Henry. He's a handful, and she's kind of drowning. She says the pay isn't much, but it is a start. And she says, as for housing, I'm sure Will can work out something with the Lord Proudfoot. He's on pretty good terms with him, and he can get you somewhere to rest your heads for the night. And Tilly is just super grateful for Edova and everything, and she totally accepts the job and everything. So she'll just head into town and kind of take care of their house. She's a maid of sorts, a maid and caretaker for the meantime. And Will kind of points Finn in the direction of the blacksmith shop across the street. Ricardus is blacksmithing. He's a pretty direct person, but he might be able to help out with work and everything. So Finn is very helpful about that. You know, he doesn't have too much experience with blacksmithing, but you know, it's definitely something that he can learn. It's more than they could have hoped for when they just stepped into the clothing shop there. And so Edova kind of explains the job to him, and Will and Finn seem to be pretty friendly now. They do become pretty good friends along the road. So now we get to Ricardus. This is Ricardus. He's the blacksmith. He owns the shop just across the road there. Ricardus is a pretty direct person, and he is, this whole, he offers him an apprenticeship, because he seems like he is a hard worker and everything. So he gets him all set up with blacksmith in here, and that's kind of their jobs all set up. And this is the Lord Proudfoot that Will introduces Finn to, and they kind of get a loan. So they get a about an $18,000 loan, but with interest it's going to be $20,000. Simoleon said they're going to need to pay the Lord Proudfoot back, and he is expecting it in 5 years from now. So in about 1307, he is expecting to be paid back in full for the Lord Proudfoot. He's expecting to be paid back 20,000 simoleons. So they're kind of pretty strapped. But you know, they've got a house, they've got a plot of land, so they've got a start for their life. And in early 1303, this will be like right after the early spring and everything would probably be with us. So it's about a year after they got married. They've been in Granite Falls City for. And they've started to build their house. You can see they're living in a little tent here with like a little chest for their belongings. They've got a little outhouse set up back here. She's got her little flower garden and everything, and this is kind of their house in construction. And they are just ready for their house to be built. And then we cut back to Reg here. So Reginald is visiting in the city of Brift here. He went to the market to go buy some different things that they need. He's just haggling with the merchant who's selling fish here. And sorry, I had a yawn. And then he's haggling with the merchant here, and he sees this beautiful woman who is just looking at her flowers and everything, and it's love at first sight. He falls in love with her, and he has to go and meet her. So he goes and he introduces himself to her. Her name is Adelez. She's from the Highlands of Brift, which is just outside. She comes to sell the flowers from her father's flower farm in Brift every spring. And, they just hit it off right away. And he's like, well, I'm leaving for Oakhaven tomorrow afternoon, but if you want to meet up tomorrow morning, say by the river when the marketplace is a little less busy, we can kind of talk some more. And she is totally down for that, and she says, I would like that very much, Reginald. By the river tomorrow sounds great. And Reginald is just, he's never felt like this before, and he kind of feels a little bit of understanding for Tilly now and how she kind of felt about that. And so we move on, and they meet by the riverbank, and they just fall in love. And that's kind of where that happens. They share this kiss. He says he thinks he's fallen in love with her, and she thinks that she's fallen in love with him, and all this stuff. And he is just so happy that he found someone that matches his kind of energy and things. And I put a few more photos here of those two because I really love those two. Anyway, so he returns home. This is supposed to be 1303. He returns home in 1303, in the early spring, and he says, I've met someone. Her name is Adelez, and he's gonna ask her to marry him. And he's telling his parents that, and his parents are just so happy that he found someone that he is in love with, and they're just so happy for him. And then there's kind of a knock at the door, and Master Pearson, which is Emma's father, kind of is there with Emma, and Leofred invites them inside. He's like, what's wrong, and Emma's father looks at Reginald and he's like, she's with child. You have dishonored my daughter and you have to marry her. And Reginald is kind of like, what? A child? But what? And Emma is kind of feeling really bad about this because she kind of feels like she took advantage of him while he was drunk, and she could have stopped it, but this was like her one chance to be with the man that she loved. And Reginald is just reeling from this information. He's like, what? He can just feel his life just slipping away out of his fingers. And Leah Fred is kind of telling him, you have to marry her now. And he's like, but what about Adela's? I'm gonna ask her to marry me. And Leah Fred is saying, like, this is not, you made your bed with Emma, now you're gonna lie in it, you're gonna marry her, you're gonna provide for your child. You can't just ruin her reputation like this. And usually Leah Fred's a very understanding man. I mean, they didn't approve of Finn in the beginning, but he kind of was reminded of how he met Ismay, and she was a serf, and, his family didn't approve of her family didn't approve of him, and they still got married, and they lived a very happy life. So he approved of Tilly and Finian's marriage in the end and kind of supported them in their endeavor. But this is an entirely different situation. Like, this is her reputation. If he doesn't marry her, she's gonna be branded a whore, and it's not good for them. So they get married in 1303, and it's a really somber affair. As you can see, Adela's is at the wedding. She had come to Oakhaven because she hadn't heard from Reginald, and she found out from a villager that Reg was getting married. And she's like, what? But we had just had like this whole confession, we're in love, what's going on? And she goes to the church, and they're getting married. And it's not a very happy occasion. They get married. This is a little bit of the recession and everything. And Reg catches Adela's before she leaves, and he goes out to go and talk to her, and she's like, you were never going to tell me that you were engaged? And he's saying, my father forbid me to see you, and I didn't know any of this all happened so fast. I just learned about this a month ago, and then we're getting married and all this stuff. And Adela's is like, but I'm in love with you. How could you do this to me? And he's like, well, this doesn't change anything. We can still be together. This wedding, it means nothing to me. This is just for our child. It's not important. And Adela's is kind of like, I'm not gonna be your whore. I'm not gonna be your mistress. It's not worth it for me. And then she leaves, and she wishes never to see him again. And Reg just kind of sits outside the church, and he just cries because, there's all of his dreams were kind of crushed in an instant. And yeah, so this is their wedding portrait and everything. And they did buy an actual painter to paint this portrait for them, because Reg is kind of the heir and everything. And so this is like an actual portrait that they wanted. And Berta did draw a nice sketch for them as well, just to she's planning on sending it with a messenger to Finn and Tilly across the sea to so that they have a memorability and everything there. And I did put the video all the way up to their wedding here, which I'm pretty happy about how that turned out. And then we go back to Tilly and Finn's home, which is all built now. At the time that they got married, they've finally finished the building on their house. They've still got this little area set up where their tent was, where they've just put the kind of bath basin and everything. And this is their little house with their fire and their chest and the bed. He's built a little high chair. He started carving some toys and everything for their baby. Their future children anyways, and they've kind of gotten a few things and a little nursery all set up for them. And, it's not a huge house, but they really don't have the money to be spending on a huge house, especially since they're going to be needing to pay back the Lord Proudfoot in 5 years' time. And so this is kind of the Stoke family in 1303 and how everything's going in the house. She's like telling him that she is pregnant with a child, and he is just over the moon about, them finally, starting their family and everything, and they're just so happy, and I love these two so much, and their whole house is just, gosh, I love them so much. And then we kind of go back here to the Northwood family in 1303. She's finally given birth, and it's a boy. His name, they named him Murdoch, and he is just the cutest little thing ever. And Perenelle, Emma's mom, came and helped her give birth to the baby and everything and walked her through it. But he unfortunately rolled a bad roll, and he passed away. He was born in the fall of 1303. The birth went well, and, Emma was recovering well after the birth, and then while she was kind of resting, he stopped breathing and passed away. Which, who knows what he could have passed away from, or just putting down as complications from childbirth. He might have had a deficiency, he might have had a heart defect. There's no telling what could have happened, but Reg and Emma will always love him, despite how long he was on the earth for and everything. And Reg, he can't help but feel guilty about his death because he didn't want to get Emma pregnant. He didn't want to marry her. He didn't want any of this stuff that came along with it. But that's kind of where he was at with that, and he feels horrible about it. And so we'll kind of see the dynamics there. This is like Murdoch's portrait here. So now that we've got all the characters explained, I can kind of, look at the family tree here. So we've got Reginald down here. He's married to Emma. Adelais is on there. Who knows, kind of how that's gonna play out in the future. And we've got Murdoch here, who died from childbirth complications and everything. And he did roll a calm infant, but, that's kind of pointless at this point, because all that just for him to die. I was a little bit salty rolling for that, but, it's alright. And then here are Tilly and Finn, and their baby has yet to be born. So in the next episode, because this is just kind of me explaining what's happened up to this point, in the next episode, we'll get into the actual gameplay with them, and I'm excited about that. And Berta, who's 16, she's kind of growing into herself a little bit more. Her father's going to be on the lookout for hoping to get her married, and we'll kind of see how that all plays out. So, anyway, if you've actually watched to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. And in the next video, we will kind of get started with the whole gameplay, and it's gonna be really exciting. Anyways, so go ahead and, leave a like, comment what you want to see more of. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video where we will be getting into some actual gameplay and playing with this family here. Anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Bye. I don't know why I hung up like a phone. Toodles.